Hey everyone, Meteorologist Tuttle back with you again. It is Sunday night. It's about 9:15, and we had a little bit of severe weather here for the last, it's been kind of garden variety thunderstorms, but really the main threat ended up turning into flash flooding. So some very heavy rainfall here over central Oklahoma. That includes Oklahoma City metro area, at least some parts of town. So I'm going to show you the latest radar view of that, show you how much rain we've seen so far, and is it ever going to stop? For some of you folks that are saying, okay, that's enough, cry uncle, right? I get it. So I'm glad you're here. Make sure you like and share this video. Tell your friends and family about AT's weather. By the way, if you're on Facebook right now, I'm going to post the link to where you can get updates from me directly through your instant messenger whenever I go live. That way you don't miss a broadcast, because the algorithms, they don't play nice anymore. Those days are over. So we got to go with some workarounds. So that is a good workaround you can do, and I will notify you when I do go live so you don't miss out. If you guys on Rumble, thanks for checking in tonight. YouTube, as always, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for checking in as well. As far as Twitter, you guys are still in the house too on occasion, and of course Facebook, the big page there. All right, let's see. With all that said and done, outside, it's cloudy. If I stare at this screen here long enough, we're going to catch the lightning strikes out there in the cloud cover. So that's just something that's going to be kind of a noisy bump here for a little bit longer. Temperatures, I've cooled down to 69 degrees here at the house. Lightning, of course, just now here on my Tempest weather station. You can get a Tempest just like I have. Looks like the little picture there on this side of me, if I go this direction. The little QR code there on the end will get you a discount as well if you'd like to pick one up. Many of you have. Heavy rainfall. I mean, we're talking over 2 inches of rainfall in my backyard here just on this sensor alone. Like we talked about, the lightning will continue and the cloud cover will continue. Winds actually out of the kind of they've been variable. Earlier I had an east wind because of a downburst. Now I have kind of a northwest wind, so things kind of sporadic here across my area. Let's take a look at the radar view. Let's go to the latest view right now. This is a west to east line of storms that hugs the I-40 corridor and points up to the north. So you can see it's affecting mainly the northern half of Oklahoma County. Does press into downtown Oklahoma City, not quite to 240 or 40 eastbound, or even down toward more Norman. Now, you guys did get the outflow boundary. See this little blue or green line, I should say, that, matter of fact, I'll highlight it for you here. This guy right here that comes on in, and this guy here, these are outflow boundaries. These are like mini cool fronts, if you will. That happens when a storm line collapses. Now, what happens? Well, see on this little line of here, you see how much red is in this at the beginning of the animation, and now look at it, a lot less red, a lot more yellow and orange. What that means is that this line of storms, even though it's not moving really anywhere, is starting to weaken quite considerably. In other words, the raindrops aren't as big, there's not as heavy, which means the flooding threat will soon here start to taper off. And the cooler weather from that will continue to progress farther to the south. They're knocking on the door in Purcell. Okay, so let's take a look here where the heaviest stuff is. So El Reno, and of course, like I mentioned, a lot of lightning with this. So these little lightning strikes here show up quite a bit here on the north and east side of town. This stretches through the west side and north side of Yukon to Piedmont, also up around the Bethany area, the Village, and even into Edmond. Now, I know Edmond's been kind of getting hammered here for a while. Now, the heaviest stuff is now pressed on the south side of Edmond into the northern parts of Oklahoma City to downtown. That extends eastward towards Spencer and Jones and Choctaw and Hara, and back out from there. We've got just south of the Turnpike, so pretty much south of 44, towards Sparks and Meeker, McLeod, and Dale. That's kind of the area that we're looking at here as far as the continuation of these showers and storms. All right, so rainfall amounts. Let's take a look here at the radar estimates so far. So if we zoom on up here to Fairview, looking at almost close to 3 inches of rain here just east of you guys, east of town. Kind of hit and miss. These little areas anywhere from feast or famine. So half an inch of rain around Ames. Okino's up around 2 inches. Hennessy in town about, just a little under an inch. But if you go up 81 between there and Wacomas, it's looking at 2.5 inches of rainfall. Marshall looks like picked up about an inch of rain, a little bit light up here in Douglas and Covington. Fairmont up about half an inch of rain. Let's go back down south in these blue areas. Now we're talking, all right? So this is, goodness, 4 inches of rain estimated to have fallen on Highway 74 to the west of Mulhall and east of Hennessy. That stretches on down south to Crescent. Matter of fact, there was some winds that got a little out of control, blew some shingles off a roof reported, but still 4 to 4.5 inches of rainfall. That's how you can get some brief flash flooding pretty quickly. Here's Cedar Valley as well, close to 4 to 4.5 between there and Guthrie. Cashin also got about an inch of rainfall. We head on down south now to North Edmond, still looking about 3 inches down along the I-35 corridor. Back out here on the west side of Edmond, it drops off pretty quick to about an inch or so. A little lull here north and east of Piedmont, say up around the Deer Creek area. Then from Piedmont itself, it's about an inch or so, and you see how this then tapers off. So once you get down on Yukon and Bethany, rainfall amounts up to about quarter of an inch at most in some cases. Once you get up to 44, it picks up a little bit more. And on the east side out towards Spencer and Jones and Choctaw, we're back in the blue area, right? So that's back up to around 4 inches of rainfall. Matter of fact, here's the biggest rain I found, and that's here just northwest of Jones, south of Arcadia, just out to 44. That's some significant rain there. Matter of fact, let me see. That's going to place this. I was going to see the roadway on here. North Post Road and North Westminster. So that's kind of the area hit the hardest as far as the immediate Oklahoma City metro area goes. That's where we've seen up to 5 inches of rainfall estimated by Doppler radar. And of course, there's more heavy rainfall out from there toward Chandler. Davenport is west of you guys, up around 4 here in the blue section. So there you have it. Now, other parts of the state did get some rainfall, of course. Northern Oklahoma as well, and that continued early into yesterday's event. And then down here into southern and southeast Oklahoma, guys down around the McAllister region just north of you. Also picked up these little areas anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of rainfall around Eufaula, maybe in some spots around 3. And way down here into southern Oklahoma around Atoka, Caney, Boswell, Antlers, Durant, also kind of hit and miss. It's feast or famine, either from sprinkles to maybe as much as 2 inches of rainfall in these areas on down south. All right, so let's kind of look at how things are going on the localized picture. Let's head on over to the maps. Right now, we still have a flash flood warning in effect here for northeastern Oklahoma County, and points out to the east from there just a little bit. Wording on this continues until midnight, so these flash flood warnings do last a little bit longer than what our traditional severe thunderstorm warnings would. So for southwestern Lincoln, northeastern Oklahoma County, let's see here. Doppler radar measured at least 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, and additional 1 to 2 still possible. So flash flooding could occur, especially low-lying areas. Always don't cover a flooded roadway because you don't know if the road's washed out or what's underneath it. But some of the areas include, of course, Oklahoma City, Edmond, Chandler, Choctaw, Harrah, Jones, Luther, Wellston, Arcadia, Warwick, and downtown Edmond. Pretty much the areas we highlighted there on the radar map for you. Okay, so let's see what we've got here as far as wind gusts are concerned. On the Mesonet, remember, it's not going to measure every wind gust out there in the state. I think my house is about 44 miles per hour. But there's plenty of 40s up here in central Oklahoma, and those really occur when you get those downburst winds. We do talk about the rainfall over the last couple of days, starting from Friday night when this shortwave upper level trough kind of started to work its way in to the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle. So up there, they picked up about an inch or so of rainfall in these little green areas, close to 2. We've got the little central hot spot here over our neck of the woods, and it's just now kind of tolling up here across this area. And there's that spot we talked about yesterday down south in the east. Okay, now, what else do we have here for you? Oh, the satellite viewpoint. Okay, a couple things you can look at on the satellite as well. This is an infrared satellite. So what we're going to focus on is, A, you kind of have this same east to west area, right? Hasn't really moved much. Now, that's how you end up getting flash flooding pretty quickly. Now, remember, keep in mind, Dallas saw something similar to this, and they got pounded with a foot of rain in some areas, and that was way too much. Now, the second thing you pick up is, you see these darker red colors? These are cloud tops, and these are cloud tops measured by their temperature. All right, so the colder the temperature, the darker the reds. Well, thunderstorms, for them to be very strong, you want to be really cold up top. Once they start to warm up top, that means the whole thing's weakening. So what's the trend that you see here? This is your meteorology class 101 in session. So you notice a lot less of those dark reds, right? A lot less cloud tops for those really tall thunderstorms, which means that this line continues to weaken. Now, it doesn't mean that it just stops raining just like that. It will take some time. But the point being is that eventually we're going to get this stuff to kind of come to an end. And it's I don't know, it's a kinetic type to potential energy combination of what's in the atmosphere, which could produce, and then once it does produce, it turns into kinetic energy, which then has to wind down. All right, so it's going to have to run out of steam. Now, the good news is it's again, some good news when you talk about some flash flooding. At least it does occur over areas that were hit pretty hard by the drought. That's in the red area here in Oklahoma, so at least it fell over parts of the right area, which is good. Temperatures, as a result, we're into the rain-cooled 60s here, this big green area here over Oklahoma County. Elsewhere in the state, still into the 80s, some pockets of 70s, depending if they got some rainfall around. Winds, remember how earlier I kind of told you they're kind of variable depending on where you live. Like there's a lot of wind gusts here up to around 30 because of the storms in the area. They create little wind gusts. But over the state, yeah, primarily a southeast wind in this fashion. Even up here northwest, kind of a southeast wind up here as well. But because of the weak disturbance, or I should say the weak surface boundary that was in effect, which helped to generate those thunderstorms moving southward a little bit, that actually kind of causes a northward direction of propagation, right? So kind of a north wind just by the mass of the storms themselves kind of drifting southward. Well, what you have on the other side is that south wind we talked about, right? Those winds kind of go in this direction. So what you get is what we call mass convergence. So mass meaning an air mass, right? Air mass that once they kind of collide, you got one on one side, one on the other, and they bump heads. And what happens is, well, they can't go down to the ground, so they have to go up. So when you have mass convergence, meaning two areas are converging into one, it goes up and then produces the showers and the storms. So in this particular case, you can see how the focus for this evening was to get all that activity to develop right here, just on the north side of the metro, Logan County, out toward Kingfisher. And then, of course, like we said, it kind of sagged to the south with time. All right, so here's a look now. Let's do a little forecasting for you. So we're going to extend it to see what's going on. So that was the short term, by the way. So, again, it's going to take probably another couple of hours by midnight for that rain to finally wear it down to where it's just, sprinkles and really light showers. So it'll take still a little bit longer, but at least the immediate threat of some 2-inch rainfall or something like that is over. So again, it's in a weakening trend. Okay, so let's take a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is the jet stream pattern. What you're going to see, what we track is colors. The brighter the color means the more lift or spin in the atmosphere. And when we have that usually generates cloud cover and or rain. Now, of course, in the wintertime, we talk about snow or ice, but this time around, we're talking about rain or maybe even hurricanes. So here's a little spot up here in Canada. Here's a little guy down here. Here's a little spot down here. Here's a spot right here. So we watch for these stronger centers to get a little bit better coverage and focus over a particular area. But any of these little broad areas of color right here indicates weak lift in the atmosphere. So any one of those, usually in the summertime, can sometimes do a little something as long as you have some other ingredients in place. Okay, so let's put this in motion. See what's going to happen as we head into this week. So on Monday, what you start to see is a couple of things. So let's stop it at Tuesday. All right, and then on Tuesday, draw my little guy here. We're going to have that ridge of high pressure kind of reestablish itself in this region. Now, as you remember, air flows clockwise around a high. So as long as this high is anchored about where it is, it puts us in kind of a weak northwesterly flow aloft here over Oklahoma. And that sometimes allows, let's see which one, these little guys here, these little disturbances to kind of rotate around and then zip on into Oklahoma. So we're going to watch for this trend as I animate through time from tomorrow through the week, and we're going to see what happens. All right. Now, obviously, you can see how big disturbances rotate up here. So that's kind of usual. And then we'll watch down here. Like we'll see what comes on down here in the tropical category of things. Okay. All right. So let's go into Tuesday, headed into Wednesday. Okay. That ridge is still sitting out there on Wednesday. You see some stuff going there in western Mexico. All those colors there. All right. We're at Thursday now. That ridge is a little stronger. Got some stuff going on in Texas. You see this little color of energy down here, kind of just sitting there, spinning around a little bit. Got some rainfall toward the end of the week for those guys. All right, let's head on to Friday. to Saturday, you're seeing still lots of little color just kind of dancing around here in the central southern plains. So what's about to happen with all this? Well, it looks like our ridge is heating up. I mean, it's getting strong. 600 decameters out here. But what we're going to look for is, let's see, is this guy here? Let's see if we can't get a little upper low developing here. Now there's one up here and there's one way down here off the page. So let's see what happens if we can't get something that kind of does one of these things. The high stays closed off like so, forces the northern track of the jet stream to be up here, and then does a piece of it come down like this direction, right? Kind of rotates around this upper level low, and then maybe back out like this. Let's see. Let's take a look at what happens. All right, so there's Saturday. This is upcoming Saturday, by the way, so the week from today. Okay, so you see a lot of that energy starts to rotate here across Oklahoma into Texas. So this is on Sunday of next weekend. All right, I'm going to go a little bit more in a time. So what we've got here on this map is kind of a convoluted mess, but we can make some sense of it. So the high didn't really change. It actually retrograded. Remember, it was out here, and now it's out here. That's good news for us. Remember, we want those highs as far west as we can get them. So that little low that was up here has now dropped down to here. The little low that was forming out here is kind of still there, kind of anchoring around. And yes, we have a little tropical system out here off the east coast. Okay, I'm going to leave that on the map. We're going to animate, see what happens. So let's go to, now we're going long term, where this is after Labor Day. We're going to Tuesday into Wednesday the 6th. And this is where this model stops. This is the European model we're looking at long term. Okay, so what do we have here? All right, so the high is still out here. It's squashed quite a bit, kind of a bit weakened. A new bubbled high formed up here. And then we have a couple of tropical systems. One down here across the Baja, and another one out here east of Florida. And of course our guy right here in the middle. So as you can see how this weather pattern became much more complex than it did to start the event. So what we watch for is things kind of get trapped. You can get some blocking that happens. So let's see where our airwaves are going. Remember the jet stream is like a river, like you'd see, when you're skipping a rock across it, right? So just think of a atmospheric river. It's not water, but it's air, and it does the same type of fluid dynamics. So let's see here. We're going to have air that flows clockwise in this fashion. We're going to have air that flows clockwise in this fashion. All right, so now what we have here is a null between the two of trapped energy. It's got nowhere to go. So it just starts to sit here and spin. Okay, so we still have this little low here, and we know that the air flows counterclockwise around a low, like so. All right, so that's just going to kind of sit here. So this guy and this guy, because of the pattern that it's in, are going to feed off each other and just kind of sit and be a little stagnant for a while. Let's see. What will have to happen is this guy down here will have to do something, and that may disrupt the flow depending on where it goes. And this dude over here off the coastline is going to have to come barreling through and just shove all this out of the way and come in, and that'll get things moving. But this is all the way to like the 8th and 9th of September. So you're talking about like long-term patterns. When you look at models, this is kind of what we do to look at the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and this guides how things happen at the surface. So what all that tells us is that although we don't have a big opportunity for rainfall, we do have some opportunities for rain as long as we have these little weak areas of this energy. What we do not have is like a big, strong, upper low or tropical storm or hurricane coming. That we do not have. But we have kind of what we're in right now, which is occasional passages of weak fronts along with occasional rounds of some showers and storms. Okay, so let's go with the short-term model here for tonight. Now, summertime, they are horrible, all right? Not only even knowing what's outside the window, in other words, you are better than our best short-term model when you look outside and go, yep, it's raining, because the short-term model can't do that. It looks outside and it goes bone dry. So that's a problem, which means we're still got a lot of work to do in the world of meteorology. All right, so let's just say, let's see what it does. Obviously, it's got tonight wrong, and usually garbage in, garbage out. But we're just gonna let's just give it, let's just give it a free pass. All right. All right, let's get what happens for tomorrow. Okay, so we'll head into Monday morning for you. It does have some isolated shower activity through lunchtime from central Oklahoma up north and east. Nothing heavy, just really hit and miss, no big deal. And then by afternoon, it's got stronger thunderstorms that kind of develop in the same area they did today. All right, Kingfisher, Logan County, back out to Blaine, just northwest of Canadian County. Now, that's totally doable in the cards. A little patch up here northeast of Tulsa. This is by tomorrow afternoon. You see how those do move south. And they kind of clip the western parts of Oklahoma City Metro. And this time around, they anchor more out on 40 west of town out toward Elk City. Now, that's somewhat good. And the reason I say this is because we really don't want this same outcome repeated twice, 2 nights in a row. I know you're thinking, we need the rain. We do, but we don't want the flooding. All right, it's we try to pick and choose our battles here. All right, so in the evening there, 6 to 7 o'clock, you can see those storms bubbling up out in southwestern western Oklahoma for our Monday, out to the Texas Panhandle. There's more activity goes through the evening hours. There's 11 o'clock to midnight. Still bubbles up some activity here in Oklahoma City, points down to the south and west. So it's not dry here. It's just, fingers crossed we don't have a repeat of the deluge. But, a little bit more rain is not a problem. It's just we don't want another, 3 or 4 or 5 inches. Okay, so let's see. There's Tuesday. Some activity there in the morning up across Ponca City and Stillwater. And then after that, things kind of get quiet. There's a little hint of some ice activity Tuesday afternoon back from Oklahoma City southward. The pattern on this deal, like I said, is typical summertime. So this is par for the course when you have a little bit of weak energy up there aloft in the atmosphere. It's kind of just drifting overhead. There's no huge signals, so that's kind of what we have to work with. All right, let me look at rainfall amounts, and this is where kind of things are ridiculous, right? Because if it doesn't even know it's raining now, how is it going to add up the total accumulation? The only thing that it did see was the early start of the rain up here, and he put 5 inches in an area that it did not really hit 5 inches, but it was kind of close. But that's just kind of an example of how sometimes they stink, right? But tomorrow afternoon, they do hint at some of these storms being able to produce another 1 to 2 to 3 inches of rain, where we do get that training event or that heavy downpour, slow movement event. Stuff out in western Oklahoma as well, on into the Texas Panhandle. So that's your rainfall here through Tuesday. Let's go into an extended model from that. Same kind of idea. It'll take us on into Tuesday afternoon versus Tuesday morning, but the look is about the same. Pockets of these areas where you might see about 3 inches of rain, which could lead to some brief flash flooding, higher amounts out here in eastern Texas Panhandle and stuff. So at least Texas is getting more rain as well. Okay, rainfall amounts once we extend this out to cover all of this coming week in the next weekend. There's no huge, after this first few days, there's really no huge rain signal for central Oklahoma. So the amounts here that it's going to show is really indicative of what's going to happen today, tonight, tomorrow, and Tuesday, really. So beyond that, pretty much mostly dry. Like I said, I can't rule out these little isolated piddly stuff, but these global models will never be able to see that nor accumulate that well. All right, let's move on to temperatures. What's our big story there? Let's take a look. Okay, let's see. Zip on into tomorrow. 70s in the morning. We are still, believe it or not, in some cases, hitting, if we can get enough sun, we do manage to climb into those mid to upper 90s at times. Now, this might be a little overdone, especially the fact we just had a lot of rain around the area, but regardless, the models do like the mid to upper 90s here in central Oklahoma. And what you do see, that dark spot of red, that's just where it produces those thunderstorms in the afternoon. And of course, that as that expands, you see how the temperatures, it says 69 degrees. So that's the model saying, boy, that's a big mini cold front, right? Really dropping those temperatures down for the afternoon, where you do get the rainfall. You can see how these things just blow up everywhere. Like there's a big storm cell that blows up in Elk City, one up around Amarillo. So one of the cool things about the models is that you can infer a lot of things based off the data on what you see. Okay, so regardless of the 90s that we'll have in the day, they'll cool in the 60s if you get the heavy rainfall like we have here now. All right, let's go into Tuesday. So back into the 70s we go. There's a few 60s out west. And then in the afternoon, we're back into the 80s and 90s by 1 o'clock. Let's see what happens Tuesday afternoon by 4. Back into the mid-90s. Again, no 100s. That's good news. And there's the bubble up of some of those showers down across southern Oklahoma. Some thunderstorm activity down there as well. So that kind of takes us on a Tuesday. Okay, about the rest of the week, more of the same, rinse and repeat. But just a reminder that the precipitation kind of shuts off in this window here, Monday and Tuesday. There's stragglers for Wednesday, if not much expected. South on the Red River, maybe southern Oklahoma. And then after that, we kind of hold upper 80s near 90, which actually, believe it or not, is seasonable for this time of the year. So we're rounding out the month of August and starting September where we should, which is a nice thing to see, right? Versus, more 100s or something like that. And then we're back to the upper 80s, so we head on into the 7th and 8th. So that is a very long forecast because I haven't given you one of those in a long time, right? And I taught you a little bit of weather along the way. That way you can kind of see things, so you can pick things out. So when you see me do, these additional forecast discussions and I show you certain stuff, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Or, oh, I know what that means. That way you kind of follow along, right? It's always better when everybody knows the rules to the game. Because then there's more interaction. You get to play the game too. You don't have to sit on the sidelines. So my goal is to teach you the rules of the weather. So that way, anytime we talk about the weather, you know the rules of the game, and you can play along, and you can be your own forecaster, right? You can be your own backyard meteorologist. So kind of neat stuff. Let's see. Let me take another quick look here at the radar. We'll see what's changed, if any, and we'll go from there. Okay, so right now, let's see what's happened. That little east to west line, I'm still seeing less and less in the way of the red colors. You see how those are kind of getting replaced with more green, some yellow, maybe a little bit of orange. Still some strong stuff here from Yukon on the east side, moving south and east still, and some new activity from more down to Norman. So that's another good thing to point out. Just because you have, and I'll just circle it, kind of this activity that starts to weaken, right? And starts to die off, does not mean you can't get new activity south of that area. And the reason why I say that is because, remember, we've had, let me move this up this way, clear this screen. Okay, so remember, this is a weak cold front, right? And it's really an outflow boundary, but we're going to call it a weak cold front for the sake of the argument. Now, on a weak cold front, let's do it for you this way. All right, so let's pretend. Yeah, okay, so let's pretend, let me do this so you don't get confused. All right, so let's do this. Okay, turn the radar off. Now, we're going to do a little side action. So I cleared that out. All right, so now we're going to do something different. Show you the ground, okay? This line, forget the map in the background. This yellow line represents the ground, where we all live and breathe, okay? And then as you go up with height, that's the atmosphere, all right? Okay, so we talked about an outflow boundary / cold front is what we talked about. So let's do this. We got a bunch of storms that are bubbling up, cumulonimbus clouds, and they're all like this, and they're all bubbling up in here, blah blah blah, and they're all raining. Yeah, all the heavy rain comes out. By the way, some pea-sized hail come out of some of those. I got some here at the house. All right, so what happens is, again, what goes up must come down. So a lot of this air that has gone up, right, is now going to come down in the form of a downdraft. So this downdraft, this rush of cooler air, that is now rain-cooled 60s, for example, spreads out like so. All right, and it keeps on spreading out, and then just kind of moves to the east. So as it moves, well, in this particular case, move to the right. Not necessarily the east, just depends. Like tonight's example, move to the south. Point being is, the air rushes away from the storm. So what happens is you kind of get this stair-step effect, right? And what you end up with is basically a cold front. So let's say you're Joe Bob down here. This is my stick figure for Joe Bob. And he can see this line coming of clouds. He goes, I wonder what that is. Well, that's a nice little outflow boundary that's coming. He's going to get a nice brush of cooler air coming at him. Now, if Joe Bob is really tall, this is what he would see. This rush of cooler air, now that we built it, remember, is deep. Now, it's shallow right here at his feet. But as we go up with height, this little air mass goes up like this, right? So now this, fill all this in, is all the cooler air. All right, so it's more and more shallow as we get closer to Joe Bob. So this, believe it or not, acts like a little mini cold front. So why is that important? Well, remember Joe Bob. He hadn't seen any rain yet. All the rain was out here for these guys. Well, guess what happens? A little funny business happens. A little parcel of air gets picked up on the leading edge of this front. This little parcel of air kind of rides up along this frontal boundary, like so. It starts to grow, and before you know it, you got yourself a storm that's formed right here, and it's raining down. So Joe Bob didn't quite get the storm. He did get the little taste of the cooler weather, cooler air, but the storm fired just to his north. All right, so now you kind of got the visual. Let's see what that looks like back on a two-dimensional plane here. So let's clear this and put the radar back on. All right, so here's the radar. Now, remember, we'll spell it out for you. These were all the storms earlier. This is your red bubbling up storms. And then remember, we had the outflow coming all the way down, right? Right down here. And this is where old Joe Bob is. He's going, okay, I'm feeling it, but where's my rain? Well, about halfway between where Joe Bob is and our old storms, new storms picked up and rotated, and now these are bubbling up, and these are going up around the Norman area. So that is how, as you have an outflow banner that comes in, it picks up that air. Remember, it can't go on the ground. It's kind of converging. And it comes up, rides up over that layer, lifts it up, and then it starts to generate some rainfall, and it starts to fall back down. So that's the pattern that we have right now. I feel sorry for old Joe Bob. He didn't get the rain out of this deal, and he probably won't. But at least he'll cool down a few degrees, and it'll feel nice as he's out there sipping his evening decaf tea or coffee. All right, so there you go. There's a little Meteorology 101 for you. So what happens here in this case, these storms can sometimes be, real heavy for a long period of time, and at other times they can only be just kind of weak to moderate, and then they kind of die off. It depends on a lot of the things that happen in the atmosphere as to whether or not you've got the potential just to keep things going. In the summertime, usually you have a better potential to keep things going because there's so much heat applied during the day, right? When you get into the 90s, and even 100s, that's a lot of energy out there in the atmosphere to work with. So if all other things are there, moisture, et cetera, wind shear, blah, 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 all those can help to keep those storms going much longer overnight. And that's how you end up with sometimes nighttime thunderstorms, because there's still just residual energy in the atmosphere, even though the sun's long gone. The lag doesn't necessarily apply that much just because we've supercharged it. Okay, but out here in the west, this little batch here, you can get occasional cycling of a storm, resurgences, where they can kind of pulse. We call them a pulse storm. So it'll pulse up, get stronger, and the cell will collapse. Another one will take its place, it'll collapse. And it may do this a few iterations over a half-hour window or whatever, but at some point, it's done. It's tired, it's used up its available resources, and then it all starts to weaken again, like everything else. So if we go back a couple of frames here, so let's go to between Yukon and Bethany. Let's go. This little guy right there. That little purple spot, that was some pretty good little hail that came out of this little area. Now, it's probably just a cluster of pea-sized hail. In other words, I don't think it would be anything large. And I can look at some of our factors here to see. Yeah, okay. So this is KDP. So what this tells me, this bright color, is a lot of melting hail, all right? So that melting hail puts out a very strong reflectivity signature. The correlation coefficient has dropped down to this green area to a value of around 0.88. Again, that tells me some hail. All right, so that's 2 for 2 for hail. Now, the ZDR also is an indicator of hail. However, it's much more on the positive side versus the negative side. If it was on the negative side, then we would have large hail. But it's on the positive side, which means small baby hail, and a lot of it, and melting baby hail. So that's what we have in this little purple area here. So that's how you can look at the dual pole products to delineate what kind of hail that you may be seeing in a particular area versus the old school method of just looking at a reflectivity product like this one and see the purple area, go, oh, you're getting some hail. And then you have to kind of guess, well, how big is the hail? Well, rule of thumb, if it's 60 dBz or higher, you're probably getting up to, maybe close to golf balls, right? In this particular case, the max dBz I saw was 64. So I would have said in a springtime situation, hey, might be seeing some golf balls up there, or at least at the minimum 1-inch size. But because we look at these other products like I just showed you on the radar, we can go, oh no, that's a shame on me if I fall for that one. And in the summertime, you usually don't get big hail anyway. It's just too hard. The atmosphere is not that cold to produce it. But anyway, point being is some neat things happened here this evening, which caused some brief flash flooding, a lot of ponding of roadways. Always, always, always avoid those water-covered roadways. You don't know how deep it is. You don't know if it's right next to a stream or a river or creek. Flash flooding kills more people than tornadoes or lightning or anything like that combined. So it's I like to call it kind of the silent killer because nobody gives it any respect. It's you don't really think about it. It's no big deal. I can drive through it. You have all those thoughts, and that's what causes the problems. So that's what's out there here this evening. So it's kind of important. I mean, we haven't had like a significant weather event here in Oklahoma City in quite some time. Of course, because of the summer, and this one was some brief flash flooding, at least in the populated areas. That obviously can be a concern. So I was going to talk about that, and then also just your forecast in general to kind of give you an update. Because I did not get a chance to write a blog today. I was helping out Mrs. Tuttle. We had a open house. And we were showing that this afternoon for real estate, and the weather cooperated, which was good. So that was nice. I'm getting better, at learning the ropes of the real estate world. It's a lot to absorb. It's a lot to take in. There's a steep learning curve, and I'm like a sponge, and I don't do anything half-assed. So I dig my feet in and I get on with it. I'm just like, I want to know everything, and I want to know it by tomorrow. So what do I got to do? I just dive into it, right? I'm like that with everything. That's the research scientist side of me. So that's kind of what I do. Because that's the way you're the best, right? You can only be as good as you are by the amount of time you put into it. If you don't put a lot of time into something, you're not going to be that good at it. Even if you're naturally skilled, you're never going to be what you could have been. So time is what matters the most, and you putting in the extra time does make a difference. All right, so let's see. There was... I read this because there was an update while we were doing all that on the radar. Just the wording from the warning on this flash flood warning that came out. This one came out around 9:33. It was for southern Oklahoma County. So it came out because of that slow drift of rain in northern Oklahoma County that we talked about when we started this. This one goes until 12:45 in the morning. Again, Doppler radar indicates anywhere from 1 to 3 inches have been common. An additional 1 to 2 are possible. So low-lying areas are always susceptible to flash flooding when that happens. Creeks, small streams, urban areas, highways, streets, underpasses, poor drainage area, low-lying areas, that kind of deal. Let's see here. Some locations: Oklahoma City, Midwest City, Del City, Bethany, Choctaw, War Acres, The Village, Spencer, Nichols Hills, Nakoma Park, Valley Brook, Tinker Air Force Base, Forest Park, Woodland Park, Lake Aluma, Smith Village, the Capitol, the Fairgrounds, and Wiley Post Airport. Just about everybody. Did I miss anybody? Everybody's going to get some more heavy rain out of this deal. If we zoom in, the strongest that we talked about before is from around Bethany on down to Mustang right now, right along 152. And there's some good stuff that's popped up here between Moore and Norman, especially on the east side. Just little pockets of heavy rainfall there. All right. And that's been about it. Let me see. I think it's all I wanted to cover. All right, it is almost 10 o'clock. So I'm going to get out of here, but appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Hope that was helpful. Hope educational as well, and that you got your forecast to boot. So I do, if you're new and you haven't, seen what I do here for a while, so I do forecast discussions, kind of like tonight, but they normally don't last this long. They're usually, I try to keep them around 10 minutes. Sometimes they go 15. If it's really detailed, like, it's major tornado event, we really got to get into the data, and it's just now trickling in, and we have to look out on the fly. That can sometimes take up to 20 minutes on those deals, but obviously it's really good information, right? And it's the very latest. Literally. You're talking about hot off the presses. It's off the presses. You see it come in as I see it come in. So we'll do that, but otherwise, these type of deals we can do a lot more teaching of the we'll get some time. I'll do that as well on occasion. And then whenever we do tornado season, I cover those severe weather events as well. What I typically don't cover is just your standard garden variety thunderstorms, just because I don't have the time. I got too many irons in the fire. But if I were to ever quit my federal job, which pays the bills, because this does not, this pays hardly no bills. But if I were to quit my federal job, then I would put in a position where I could probably do this like full time and do a lot more weather coverage. It's just that's doesn't appear to be in the cards at this point. So I'm enjoying where I'm at, what I'm doing, and helping you guys out. I see you, Reed, by the way. How you doing, brother? But Reed, we go way back when I was working at the TV station at Channel 5. He'd come in, gosh, probably 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, or when I was at work trying to dub off storm chaser footage from him out storm chasing, catching tornadoes. And those were the early days. And of course, he blew up after that and was on that show Storm Chasers and chasing around with all that stuff with the Discovery Channel. And now he's still doing it. He's still going strong, eating those gas station burritos. Brother, I don't know how you're doing it. If I lived on a diet of gas station burritos, I think I'd be dead. So you must have an intestinal fortitude that is unmatched. But yeah, he's still going at it. I mean, he still love it, chasing dream. He and another buddy of mine, Jeff Petrosky, a little older than me. He's just like Reed, and I mean, gosh, these guys are a different breed, man. They just love the weather. It's like in their veins. It's the strangest thing. It's some people need sugar or coffee to get in the morning. They just need a storm, and they're good. They are definitely wired from Mother Nature, so they are fitting the purpose that they were given very well. And me, the purpose I was given. It's interesting, you know. Sometimes people struggle with what their purpose is in life, and others, are more easily guided toward it. And I think a lot of it's initiative, right? A lot of it's learning, going kind of where doors open and things direct you. And if you have a policy, which is say yes to a lot of things, even though you may not know how that's going to work out or how that's going to play down the road. Don't say no a lot. Now, that's different from saying no to someone for, reasons of relationships and, boundaries and all that. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about when it comes to opportunities and relationships on networking or meeting people, or you don't want to go to an event because you don't feel like it, you're blah, whatever, and you just force yourself to go. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to come out of that. Things happen all the time in these situations that years later you look back and go, man, can you believe this all happened all because this happened? And if you say no, all that's gone and you'll never experience it. It's really weird. So in those cases, like for me, for weather, I burned out of the television news. Man, yeah, if you guys only do half of what actually goes on in that business, you'd have to laugh. So I got burned out on that. I was ready for a change, and the federal government came calling, and I came answering. I said, "Done." I said, "I need a 9-to-5er. I just need to take a break." And so after a few years of that, I kind of missed doing all the weather, the forecasting. I missed helping people, right? Because that's what I've been doing for 12 years, and that's what you do, right? And obviously you don't do that anymore. It's different. Now, yeah, I was helping people, but it was different, right? I was working on software, hardware engineering for weather radars that prevents plane crashes. So I'm still helping people. I'm still doing a good service, to my common man, blah, 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 saving lives and all that. But I missed the element of forecasting and more of a personal relationship, just one-on-one, right? So Facebook was still around, in the early days, 2018. And I thought, all right, you know what? Let me just put a Facebook page up and start doing forecasts there. And that's how I got started. And it blew up. Back then, there wasn't any, AI to tell you what you should see and not see. It was just organic, word of mouth, and hey, check out this dude, And then people that watched me on television for years, they found me again, right? So that's kind of how that started. And I did that for a couple of years, and I would storm chase, like Reed and my buddy Jeff, and loved it, loved the storm chasing. And then storm chasing got a little dangerous because everybody with a cell phone was a storm chaser at that point. So the roadways got real clogged up. And that's the very frustrating part of storm chasing now, because that becomes a safety problem. And as I got older, I was like, I ain't got time for this. So I thought, what if I just cover severe weather like I used to at the TV station? And that's, it's funny is because the May 31st tornado, El Reno tornado, that was a catalyst that pushed me to say, you know what? I'm done with the storm chasing, but let me go cover severe weather live like I used to at Channel 5 back in the day. Run radar, street level mapping, tell you where the tornado is, time of arrival, all that stuff, right? And I said, okay, what am I going to do with that? Well, I got to build a studio. Well, lucky for me, I paid attention in 12 years of TV. I built a studio. And I said, okay, well, so how are we going to broadcast this live? Well, Facebook Live was new. We'll start there and start doing Facebook Lives, and then YouTube Lives about the same time or roughly after that. And then now it's added to Gab. Gab TV be coming up here soon. Their live version right now, they just have a video version, but not a live version yet. Rumble's live, so I'm on Rumble. Twitter's live, so on Twitter. Of course, it was Periscope back in the day. So I started doing all that 2014. I said, I need a weather app. So I said, well, got to get that door open. So I just kind of started doing stuff little by little. Being a pioneer without knowing you're being a pioneer is a really interesting place. No one's going to tell you what to do, and you just try stuff out and see if it works. And then if it does, then you try to tweak it to make it better. And so that's kind of what you do, and you slowly build your brand, your empire, your name, your company, whatever it is you're doing. And then the one part of the equation in all of this was funding. Like, well, I'm going to fund all this, right? So I was pulling out of my retirement because I had, I got to pay for stuff. I got to build stuff, web hosting, all that, And so I was doing that. And then for the longest time, I was funding it out of my pocket. So I was robbing my future to pay for the current, which was not the best thing to do. But at the time, that's what was there. And that's kind of, I'm doing something no one's done before, right? Keep that in mind. This is long before anyone else was on YouTube or Facebook doing weather. I was it. So it's kind of like, how do you, and I wasn't in it for the money, right? So I'm in it just to help people. So I'm not a salesman by trade. I'm a scientist and I'm a doer. So I wear a lot of hats. I'm a techie. So I build things, design things, creative design, elements, marketing, promotion, all that kind of stuff all works together. The last hat I didn't really want to wear or could wear was the handout money hat. That was, to me, that was foreign. To me, that was it wasn't me, right? It's not something that I ever did and really just wasn't really trained to do. So that was probably my weakness. So I just kind of avoided it. And then all these platforms started allowing, they started coming in, allowing the followers, you want to call you, the fans, the consumers, or whoever, fill in the blank, the friends, the whatever platform it is, whatever category it is, how people look at each other, all that stuff. Well, there was platforms to give back to the content creators. So once that happened, like Patreon, I think was one of the first. There was Subscribestar and there was PayPal. So you do all these things where then you can get donations. So people then who enjoy your content and appreciate the work you did in that content then gives back in the form of donations. And that was a way then for content creators like myself then to earn some revenue. And then that helped to pay off, a lot of stuff that, otherwise, again, comes out of your own pocket. And then everything kind of goes back in a circle. So then I would take that revenue that came in and then upgrade and then buy more things to make all this work. It just to expand the operation. So that's kind of where we are now. So that's what we do, and that's probably why I have 3 jobs. So it's not because I'm greedy for money. It's because I need to pay for these pay for these operations I keep doing. That's fine. I mean, if I wasn't going to work, what else am I going to do, right? But no, I do. Don't get me wrong. I do have some relaxation, leisure time, but I do work. I work hard, and this weather operation here, same thing. You know, when it comes to tornadoes, hey, sometimes you see me from 8 in the evening to 3 or 4 in the morning. It is what it is. Sometimes I take vacation days off of work to cover time, so I can cover storms. You know, that's my vacation time that I don't go anywhere. Instead, I help you guys out, and but that's what I enjoy to do. Nobody told me I had to do it, and I just want to do it. And so I do agree. I'm a little bit of a different breed in that regard. And we'll see how this goes. You know, like I said, things can always change. You never know what your future's going to hold. But things may change where I do this full time, for example. I do know, and this is the interesting part, even though I was first to do all this, I'm not the only one, right? So there's a lot of, for the better word, I'm going to say con men that are in this to get rich, in this to get money. And like in any field, those always exist. Well, weather's no different, right? And they'll pretend to be someone that they're not. And the problem with that is you guys will never know. Because as long as they can use the right jargon and they look like they know what they're talking about, as far as you're concerned, they're qualified. And that ain't the way it works. So, you know, in my case, you know, what I would do is just do what I always do. Don't worry about anybody else. Focus on what I do. Build, you know, expand, cover bigger areas, whatever. And not worry about, you know, XYZ, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Because, you know what? This is the funny thing is, I always tell them, well, they're the ones that have to look at themselves in the mirror every day, you know, when they wake up and realize they're conning people and they don't even know what they're talking about. And then one day I realized, you know what? They don't do that because they don't care. If you have no moral compass, then you're never going to look at the mirror and go, boy, I'm a bad person. You're going to look in the mirror and go, heck yeah, I'm killing it. So once I kind of thought about that, I was like, well, there goes that argument. So whatever, man. You do you, I'll do me. And then we're right back to square one. So we'll see how things go down in the future. Real estate, though, is pretty interesting. It's a neat field. So again, I'm learning a lot with that. And Jody's a rock star in that. She's been doing it for 12 years already. So just curious to kind of keep helping her and see where that goes. But I'm never going to quit weather to do real estate. Are you kidding me? Weather's number one. Always will be. But, you know, it's always good to have an income source, so real estate can do it too. Let me think what else. I think that's about it. This was a little side tangent. Did not plan on going this direction, but sometimes it happens, you know. Sit here and talk, and we go off to a couple of different little topics. So, all right, I'll tell you what. I'm just looking at the radar here real quick before I turn you loose. I will do that one more time. We'll show you. Okay. So this is the heavy thunderstorm from Bethany to Oklahoma City to Valley Brook to Mustang, kind of the border here. If you put this into motion, it is moving to the east and south and still kind of holding its own, this guy. The rest of them, look how they fall apart. See all that? Now we're getting more to greens and some yellows. So like I said, it takes a couple hours, you know, to have everything completely die out. And usually there's one guy that kind of hangs in there a little longer, like this guy with quite a bit of lightning. But it too will also start to die down. There was a little thing here, description, street flash flooding, vehicles stranded. All right, that's at 44 and 240. So just so you know, the actual street was at Southwest 74th Street is where that's located. And South Brookline Avenue, if you want to get specific. So there's a little flooding icon of some action there. Let me go over here and see if it says anything else. No. Okay. So, you know, that still may happen here for a little bit longer, especially this little cluster coming in from the west side of the city, moving south, since it's so slow moving. That you may end up getting, again, pockets of some brief flash flooding. So just be careful out there on the roadways. All right. Okay, that is it. You guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for watching tonight. And again, we'll be doing these off and on here as we get more active toward the fall. Sometimes we do have a mini severe weather season, and that's usually for the month of October, give or take a couple of weeks on either side, where things can sometimes get a little interesting. Just depends on the jet stream and the pattern and everything else. It's all complicated. People ask me all the time, how does our winter look and in relation to summer and this, that, and the other. I will give you the winter forecast, which is never wrong. It's 100% accurate every year, and it will always be. Are you ready? There's going to be some days where it's cold. There's going to be some days where it's quite mild. There's going to be some days where it rains. There's going to be some days where it's dry. There's going to be some days where we get a little ice and a little snow. And there you go. And that's your winter in Oklahoma every year. Hasn't changed since. And it won't change now. So there you go. There's your winter forecast if you're asking. And as far as big stores, big specifics, any talk out there is to put on print is toilet paper. Just expensive, fancy toilet paper. And then as we get closer to those deals, usually about, sometimes you get an idea, there's a noise, a signal of noise about 2 weeks out. And then about a week out, you can get a better idea. Okay, is that a significant deal that looks like it's coming or not? And then, of course, every day after that, you bring it home. Sometimes the models will pick it up like a 7 to 10 day window. And then from 5 to 7, they drop it like it never existed. And all of a sudden, day 4, it's back on again. That happens a lot. But then as we get closer, as you know, with tornadoes, it's a 48-hour rule. All right. So in other words, beyond 48 hours, too many things can change that will mess up an ideal atmosphere for tornadoes. Same thing with snow or freezing rain. All right. A lot of things can happen, and those are even more finicky. And sometimes it's 12 hours or 1 hour. If you're on the dividing line, and which way is it going to go, east or west? Those events are much more difficult just because of the way things are. But that's the weather. It's fun. It's the challenge. It is what it is. So that's why I do it. All right, I'm out of here. You guys have a great night tonight. Sleep well, and we will talk again with you soon. Have a great week. See ya.